It's my honor and privilege to introduce Mr. Doug Piakash and Pat Simmons from the Rocking Group.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. You awake yet? Got your coffee? Good. Well, you know, it is such a pleasure for the two of us to be up here because we have a very, very special man to introduce to you today as our keynote speaker, Mr. Robert Buchanan. Robert Buchanan was the founder and former CEO of Polar Bears International and the founder of the Arctic Action Team. Robert founded Polar Bears International as an organization with a focus on polar bear research and public education regarding the conservation of these great white bears and their habitats. With that mission, PBI has attracted some of the world's finest scientists, zoologists, land management professionals, eco-tour operators, educations people, government agencies, and other NGOs. Funding provided by PBI helps support research that has led to the listing of the polar bear as a threatened species in the U.S. government. Now, isn't that awesome? Under Robert's leadership, PBI has partnered with zoos and aquariums in North America and Europe to create the Arctic Action Ambassador Centers, which have successfully built value for Arctic wildlife in the minds of millions of people. It should be noted that 4 of the Arctic Ambassador Centers are right here in Ohio. Thanks to Robert's leadership, most people today understand we are rapidly losing our sea ice and the polar bear is endangered because of it. After spending many years at the helm of Polar Bears International, Robert decided to focus his energies on changing the collective mindset of how we, the people, care for this planet. Seeing firsthand the collective negative impact that we can have on our environment, Robert became convinced that our collective improvements in the way we chose to live could have an equally positive effect on the environment. So he and his wife, Carolyn, formed the Arctic Action Teams as a movement. It's not an organization or an NGO, it's a movement, guys. You can be a part of this that makes infrastructure and funding for sustainable actions available. Doug will tell you more about this.
Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about my direct experience with both Robert and Carolyn because I've been working with them now on a national level, and Robert and Carolyn work on an international level. Aside from Patrick Bravo locally, I think they probably have the medal here for world travel in the last month, coming across Europe, back to the United States, back to Europe, and then here to Akron. The Arctic Action Teams themselves are put together to really focus on creating green beacons in individual communities, to really go out and say thank you to all of those who are actively involved in sustainable action. Because I know Robert and Carolyn both believe that that thank you is the most important thing in motivating people to continue change. And ultimately, any time that we have any level of change in our lives, either professionally or personally, we know that those are among the most difficult things for people to embrace and to come to the other side of. Most recently, Robert and Carolyn both were in Scotland for the joint launch between the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is Akron Zoo's accrediting organization, the European Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and Arctic Action Team jointly launched a program known as Pole to Pole. It deals with penguins, it deals with polar bears, it deals with everything in between, and is a global challenge for people to live more sustainably. And Robert's going to be talking a little bit more about that during his keynote this morning. A few things to recognize, though, is that Robert has truly been, and Carolyn as well, a global leader in our zoo community, both personally and through the organizations they've founded. Nationally, I serve as the vice chair for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums Green Scientific Advisory Group, and have had the pleasure of working very closely with Robert on several fronts. And as Robert said to me recently, as goes Ohio, so goes the nation, so goes the rest of the world. So just recognize we're not only leaders here locally, but we're leaders on a global stage at this point in time. And without further delay, I'd like to introduce Robert Buchanan.
I tell everyone I'm Irish and I'm Italian, and I can't talk without my hands or moving. So hopefully I won't yell in your ears. This sounds, everybody in the back okay? I notice as I look out across there, it's not just people from Summit County. This is great. I see some very dear friends from our beloved Columbus Zoo. Thank you very much for coming all the way up here. Summit County itself. This is amazing, people. This is really amazing. But before we talk about the amazing county that you're in, and by the way, please, please, please go out and support this bond issue coming up for vote. It is so critical. You can't say a better way of saying thank you. You guys are on a roll here, so give it all you got, all right? I had to put that, I didn't have to, I wanted to put that plug in there. All right, I think that the best way, I'd like to take you out of Summit County, if you don't mind, just for a little bit, all right? I'd like to take you out of Ohio, out of the United States, out of this planet, just for a little bit, so that you get a very understanding, an important understanding of what is going on. So let's go in a time machine. I don't know, do any of you know that we really do? United States has a very sophisticated time machine that can go back some 14 billion light years. It's called, there you go, the Hubble telescope and all of its sisters. It can go all the way back 14 billion light years. That's actually a little older than I am, okay, to what is called the God molecule, which recently just won the Pulitzer Prize, the prize for science for the two scientists that discovered it. What the God molecule is 1/3 of an atom that contained the entire universe at one time. Imagine 1/3 of an atom had all that compacted in there, and then one day, we don't know why, but it just exploded. It exploded so fast and so powerful that it actually traveled faster than the speed of light, and we don't understand anything faster than the speed of light. It was so powerful that these gases spread out in such a massive area, in such a violent way, that we're still trying to figure it out. And as that happened, gases were forming, stars started, and the universe, which we all think is kind of a stable place, is a very violent place. There are stars that circle each other at 10 million miles an hour. Just unbelievable what we're seeing out there. Now, let's take it a little bit further. We start seeing cradles out there where stars are being born and where supernovas are being created and all of this energy that's being formed, all right? And they just pop them out. Let's talk about stars for a second. In our universe, there are more stars or suns like ours than there are grains of sand on this planet. Think about that. When you go to the beach and just pick up a handful of sand, and as far as you can see, there's more suns out there than there are grains of sand. Now, let's take it a little bit further. The universe itself, if you notice up there in the little corner, there's a line. Might be able to see a little line about that long. That's 100 million light years it takes to travel that. So that gives you an idea how big this universe is, all right? Now, we start seeing that there is all these galaxies, billions and billions of galaxies. They just found one today or yesterday that was 30 billion light years away. So it was part of the original explosion that went the other way, all right? Amazing. So let's take us all the way back to our own solar system, and you'll see right there where our sun is. We're right at the bottom of the Orion Arm, all right? Right on the edge of that. And in our solar system even, it's kind of pretty violent, all right? But for most part, it's kind of stable. So we kind of think the world is stable. we'll go over to our precious planet Earth. But before we go there, I want to take you over to our sister planet, okay? One that was identical, exactly identical to ours, okay? Called Venus. And for some reason, we don't know why, that it tilted just a slight hair and now has become one of the most violent planets there is. We can't send a rover there because there's 100 miles of sulfuric acid that has to go through, all generated because of CO2, excess CO2. Now, let's go back to our little planet here. And let's go back to the top of the world just for the second, okay? Now, why did I take you on that mission? What in the world does this have to do with sustainability? It's simple. There is no life anywhere else that we have found throughout this entire universe so far. I'm not saying there's not, but so far all these sophisticated satellites and telescopes and everything else has not found anything. We are living in the Garden of Eden, for goodness sakes. This is the greatest gift that has ever been given to anybody. And man has only been here for a short period of time. And man himself is the only creature on this planet that can change and save the planet itself. It's up to us. And it's up to the people in Summit County to provide that leadership to do so. So let's go a little bit further. What are we talking about? Let's talk about pole to pole for a second. First of all, this is an Arctic morning. People want to know why in the world that I go up there at minus 40 to minus 70 degrees and go out there and see it. And it's beautiful. The sun kind of goes around you, all right? It's one of my favorite photographs. Why are we here today? Because from a perspective, what is it the world needs the most? They need hope. Whether it's economic, whether it's war, whether it's ecology, whether it's Washington, D.C. We lack hope. We don't have faith in anything anymore. Now, how do you eliminate this lack of hope? Pretty easy. You take personal action. When you do a personal action, when you recycle, when you walk, when you turn out the lights, when you ride the metro, when you do those personal actions to help reduce CO2, okay, you start feeling a little more hopeful. And how do you build upon that to create a movement? You use two words. Thank you. And that's what Summit County has done. That's the reason why you are our heroes. When we talk to the scientists out there that are working out there in the cold, in the frigid, and they're wondering why are they doing that, they say to me, Dr. Anthrop said to me, he says, if we never did any more research at all, we know how to save the polar bears, okay? We know how to save the other animals on this planet. For goodness sake, we need the world to wake up. So that's the reason why Carol and I retired from Polar Bears International and started Arctic Action, and why we're very proud to be here in Summit County. So we're going to go over one, and I'm going over to here. We believe that the center of conservation in any geographic community are zoos and aquariums. Now, they're like pubs, okay? You don't have to have the best beer. You don't have to have the best food. But you do have to be a place to have conversation, to discuss community affairs. And that's the role that zoos and aquariums have played. They are the center of conservation. And certainly the zoo here has a sterling performance on what they have done. But the conversation and bringing people together is what you've done best, Pat and Doug and your people. And I'll never can thank you enough for that. The Akron Zoo is is just amazing to me because they provide the connection. That connection with the animals that let people understand why we are important. That connection that allow you to see such things, and understand such magnificent animals across this planet. I want you to look at the diversification of these animals. What has been created for us as part of us, okay? I mean, there's such a variety of animals. Again, we haven't found life anywhere else, for goodness sakes. But here on this planet, we see all different types of animals. And these animals live in places that we wouldn't dare live in. But yet they're diversified enough to be able to create such a wonderful and priceless planet. So, how do we save these animals? How do we save ourselves? This is not the invention of the atomic bomb here. It's the use of a pack of matches. Stuff that we know how to do. It's reforestation. And the key one is urban forestation. We can lower the temperatures of a city by replanting and making sure there are plenty of trees within the cities themselves, okay? Besides it, is harvesting of trees important? You bet it is. It's a natural resource, and it plays an important role. But we also have to replant and replant. We just can't burn the Amazon forest just to make roads and pathways for industry without replanting. Okay, saving of energy. This is not something that needs a lot of thought. You guys all gripe about, the price on gasoline when it's $3 a gallon, all right? But you could cut that price down to $2 a gallon. Just not drive at 70, drive at 55, because the amount of fuel you'll save and the amount of CO2 that you lose. Now, we got to talk here about reality, all right? Reality is people say, oh, that evil China, I'll get better when that happens. Or those evil oil companies. It's not a production problem. It's a consumer problem. You vote with your dollars, okay? And there's no quick fix. Solar panels and wind turbines are wonderful, and we need them, and we need to operate on it. But truthfully some of the solutions are with things like natural gas. We're talking about the product, not how you abstract it from the ground. Natural gas is very clean and very important to bridge us to whenever we can find ways of using dark energy as an energy force. We're talking about recycle. Oh, we've done a brilliant job. All of you I know are going to go to heaven because you recycled. That's BS, okay? You're not. You haven't done anything when you recycle. It's when you buy recycle is when you do something, okay? When you keep a car for 30 or 40 years, my goodness, okay? I just saw the Pope's car. He's proud of it. It's 20 years old, for goodness sakes. He gets it, okay? You got to hand it to him. He gets it, all right? So utilization of recycled material. And the one thing that's obvious about this county, and certainly obvious about the Akron Zoo, is the mentoring. It's about talking to people about what it is that's important to maintain this planet, this Garden of Eden that we live in. Now, people say, oh, I don't want to talk about climate change. That's terrible. Don't talk about it. If we can solve the same problem by just saying two things. Do you want clean air? Everyone kind of says, yeah. Do you want clean water? Everyone's going to say, yeah. Well, if you get those two things, you'll eliminate the CO2 problem. By the way, if you're talking about the medical expenses in this general area of Ohio or the Ohio Valley area, your medical bill is additional $283 billion because of the air we breathe. Think about what you could do with that. That'd make a marvelous exhibit, wouldn't it? That would be great. So keep things simple, all right? Now, that means what we want to do is we want you to do phase one. Pull the plug. All those things in your houses that are charges that are not being used, you gotta pull the plug. If it's not being used, they're just there, it's wasting energy. This isn't too hard. This is a pack of matches. It doesn't take scientists to build the atomic bomb. There's so many things you can do. Again, this is Carolyn, where she found all the plugs that we pull. If you go to a concert now, maybe it's an unplugged concert. Maybe you take the steps going up. Maybe you turn down your thermostat and wear a heavier coat, or turn it up and wear shorts. Maybe you put your towels outside to dry from the natural sun. Maybe you find gas vehicles to use, natural gas vehicles. Maybe it is the solar panel and the wind turbines. Maybe it's a metro system. Maybe it is electric cars or a combination thereof. Maybe it's smaller cars, okay? Listen, I'm a hippie at heart, okay? So there you go. What can I say, all right? Maybe it is 55. And maybe it is, carpooling. Now, I got to tell you, look at my expression on my face. There's a truck stopping while I'm trying to take in front of me while I'm trying to take this picture, okay? So I suddenly realize that that's not a good idea. Maybe it is riding bicycles. Maybe it's walking. Maybe it's buying locally, which all the food today was bought locally. Maybe it is reusing your cups. Maybe it is refilling your cups. Maybe it is not using styrofoam. Ask the people in the grocery store to keep their styrofoam. Wrap it for you in some paper, okay, which is recyclable. Maybe it is carrying your bags out. Maybe it is unloading your trash. This is just what I did this morning. Kidding. Maybe it is when you recycle, you walk up to somebody, and if you want to have the time of your life, when you see somebody recycle, seriously do this. Go up there and say, hey, thank you very much for recycling. You made their day. It's amazing. You've got a friend for life. They won't leave you alone, okay? So maybe it is going to the Goodwill store to make sure that you're doing it. Maybe it's going back to the 60s. And maybe it is, most importantly, what this zoo and this community does, which is mentoring. It's talking to kids about what it is they have to do. It's talking to other people about what it is they have to do. It's the greatest gift that you guys are giving. There's no other community I know that gives like this. It's mentoring. So, what do we have to do from this particular point, all right, to make sure that the world really understands? We have to put everything in quantitative and qualitative, because that's the only thing the world understands today. And it's particularly the only thing that top governments understand, is make sure that that data is there and that we know how we're reducing it. And you saw in the wonderful sponsors here today how they were measuring it. So how do we do that? Well, we asked a good friend of ours that wrote this original software for Apple, a guy by the name of Craig Young, okay? So, software engineer, and he went to work on it. And what he did was create a wonderful site I encourage you guys to go to. It's called My Actions, and we're going for 1 million actions by Earth Day. It's for our planet, okay? It's really simple, okay? You simply go on there. You can go on. You can go on your little handheld, phones. I don't use the handheld phones. They're too complicated for me. And you simply can use some of the drop downs. You can see right across there, and you drop down and you click on them, and you enter in what it is that you've done. And we constantly then are able to say how many actions that were done, and it's how much CO2 it reduced, and how much money that was saved, okay? That's an important thing. We've even got it as sophisticated as using a little bracelet. You'll see Carolyn has a little bracelet. Now all we do is, where the little monitors are, you walk by and you swipe it, and it's at a recycling place. It automatically takes a picture of you. It automatically registers it, and it does it. It allows us to talk to the Marine Mammal Commission, who, when I said zoos and aquariums are the ones that are changing the community, and Mike came back to me and said, prove it. And I couldn't. So what did that mean? That meant that in Canada, We couldn't move out starving polar bears, and we had to dispatch them on the spot. Because we did not have the quantitative and qualitative data to be able to move them into zoos in the United States where they would have had a home. That's not a pleasant task. So with that frustration, we went to this system. Now, so we have the systems. We're begging you guys to help us create 1 million actions, and you guys have got a great start. Create 1 million actions for Earth Day. When we have Earth Day, it's a special day in the community, and it's not something we just say raw, hot, oh boy, it's Earth Day, hooray, okay? And we recycle a piece of paper. We've got to be able to stand up in Summit County and say, here is 100,000 actions that we symbolically give to future generations. And you know what the future generations are going to tell you when they look back on the people that are in this room? You're our heroes. You have a chance to be the future generation's heroes. And you already are in Carol and ours eyes for what you have established here. Thank you. I am honored to be here today, and I'd be more than happy to take any questions or thoughts that you might have, including get off the stage.
One that I want to ask you to kind of get the ball
Sure.
rolling here. Northeast Ohio. We heard Doug talk about as Northeast Ohio goes, so the world goes. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Certainly. It's interesting, there are 7 states that produce over 70% of the CO2 in this country. 7 states. Ohio is number 2. Okay? What we need to do is to show that people care. We did extensive research, and we found that the people in Ohio really cared. They were really concerned and wanted to do something. So the marketing concept of getting out there and doing what you're doing has a real heartbeat here. It just needs to have people say, thank you, to get it going. We are putting together a challenge. It is going very quickly of all of Ohio and Ohio Valley. The communities start competing against one another for the fun of it, okay? And each time someone takes an action, you're paid 25 cents, but you're not paid. It goes to the charity of your choice. Personally, I recommend your zoos and aquariums in the area to get the money, but I'm a little prejudiced, okay? What can I say? So anyway, it is that challenge to go on. So not only are you helping support the geographic centers, but also able to change the world. And Ohio is going to be that lead. Ohio has led so many things for so many times around. Wouldn't it be nice again to be the leaders of the world? I'll say one more thing. People say, oh, China, okay? Hello, look in the mirror, okay? Yes, China would be terrible to live in. But hey, they did eliminate plastic bags. They don't have any. Very controversial, but I just want to show you the example. They also said you're only allowed 1 child, okay? They also have done a number of other things, too. So what do you see when you go to Asia? You see brands like Apple, you see Disney, you see Microsoft. So it is America that's setting that example that we have to show the rest of the world. So I hope I stalled enough and stretched that out like we talked to get those answers.
We do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
First one, what motivated or inspired you to start Polar Bear International?
Keepers. 15 years ago, I wouldn't walk in a zoo because I was a wildlife person, okay? And my wife said to me one day, let's go to the zoo. I said, I don't want to go to the zoo. I'm out there and I see the wildlife. I'm working with the wildlife. She said, well, you can either put your hand in the sand or do something about it. So I started meeting with everyone, all the different stakeholders. And it was the keepers behind there. Behind that, the work that work quietly. They really generally don't like people. They want to work with their animals, okay? They do a brilliant job, all right? But they're very passionate. They're not, I know this will surprise you, Pat, they're not doing it for the money, okay? So it's that passion that they had and their understanding that they wanted to change the world that changed us. So hopefully I answered your question.
All right, and one other question here. Where were you born and raised, and were you taught to recycle anything as a child? Did you wear a lot of hand-me-downs, or how did your...
Now we're getting
personal.
Now we're getting personal. When people ask me where I'm from, I always say Florida. I grew up on the north side of the Everglades, and it was very rural back then. There was no Disney. There wasn't a million people in the state. You know, it was right after Abraham Lincoln was president, okay? But he did a great job. But where I was born, I'm proud to say I was born in Ohio. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, okay, at St. Anne's Hospital there. My family moved to Florida when I was, 3 or 4 years old, so I remember very little of it. So part of the pride of me coming back to Ohio to start the heartbeat here is to come back home. So hopefully I answered that. Did I recycle back then? You just kept on using the same thing back then. I mean, there wasn't anything that you got that was recycled. I mean, you just kept it. Everyone kept it forever back then. So I hope that I answered your question. Guys, everyone, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to such a brilliant group of people. Thank you again.
Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And not only is Robert coming home, but he also turned down the speaker fee to be here today. He's here on his own costs. The one caveat to that was take that money and make it greener. So here's what we did. First of all, for each one of you here, I'm guessing you didn't walk this morning. It was a little chilly. How many people had to scrape frost or snow off their car this morning? Well, what we did was we took the amount of people that were coming, where they were coming from, the travel for Robert and Carolyn, and all the energy that was going to be used, and we bought carbon credits from TerraPass to offset what we're using today so we can reduce our carbon footprint. Another thing we did, as was mentioned earlier, all the food that we had for breakfast this morning was purchased locally. A lot of the money went to purchasing local food. So it's all right here in the Summit County area and the surrounding areas. We've got 2 tables here. We've got one table that are University of Akron students. Could you guys raise your hands? And we have Kent State students as well. You guys raise your hands. Their tickets were paid for with part of the speaker's fee. These are business students from the University of Akron and Kent State. These are the future business sustainers for this area. So we want to thank you guys for being here. And also, we have an idea. We're going to start a Summit of Sustainability Awards mini grant. The details are forthcoming on that. But with that money the idea behind that is to take some of that money, start a fund to be able to help give seed money if somebody has an idea for a green initiative or a sustainable idea, to kind of give them that head start. So that's another thing that's coming out of that. So Robert and Carolyn, thank you very much for your generosity.